Hi everyone, welcome. We're gonna get started in a few minutes. Um, Give it about 2:05 and we'll get started. Thanks for waiting.
Hello, everybody. My name is Burn Sundaraj, and I'm going to be one of the instructors to the Intro to Python course. And I see most of you guys are here today. Some people couldn't make it today because of some other obligations, but they'll be joining us in some future lessons. So before we actually get into the content, I kind of want to tell you guys a story about how I got introduced to programming. So this all started about when I was around the age of 10, and I remember walking in on my dad coding. He's a programmer for his company. And when I saw his screen, all I saw was colored lines of text on his coding editor. And it looked kind of cool. And I was like, hey, I'm kind of interested in doing this. So I sat down that day on my computer and I wanted to code something. So I decided to code a website. I drew out the website. I drew out all the pages and everything. I didn't know a thing about coding. I didn't know how to learn coding. I didn't know anything. So the way I learned programming is something called project-based programming. I just started a project and I just learned to code as I went on. I didn't watch any tutorials on YouTube or anything. And while this way did take a little bit longer, I feel like it's a more effective way of learning programming because you're actually applying your skills instead of just passively taking in information. And I was able to approach any other problems as I went on in my programming career or my journey. And what we plan on doing in this course is to make sure that we're giving you guys an opportunity to actually practice the coding. And we're going to get into that a little bit more as we go on in this basics and getting started lesson. And yeah, so before we get into the content, now I want to talk about our instructors and our organization. So our two instructors are Edgar and Rikshi, other than me, and they'll be mainly working on a CS Logic course, not course, but like supplemental videos, which you guys can use to understand the process of how to approach a problem when programming. They'll be releasing those soon, so when that's created, we'll be notifying you guys, and you guys can always go onto that in your own time and just watch those videos, which will be on YouTube. So I want to talk about our organization now. So our organization is called Codivate, and so Codivate is really just a nonprofit organization that wants to introduce students of all ages to the world of programming. And we really want to just educate people of all ages and making sure that they all understand programming and learn how to actually approach programming in a problem-solving mindset. So you guys may be wondering, why is programming even important in today's world? Well, I feel like programming is a more important skill than ever in today's world. With the new rise of AI and artificial intelligence, it's showing very promising signs of continuing to grow in our world today. And while we are kind of far from artificial general intelligence, it's like human level intelligence in computers, like you guys may have seen in Terminator or something like that, AI will definitely take over many jobs in the STEM fields in the upcoming future. So in the future, like kind of knowing that, most jobs, like especially in the STEM field, will kind of require you to have some sort of knowledge in programming and even machine learning. So it's definitely a very important skill, and you guys will be able to pick up those skills as we go on in this course and learn to apply this. So what is our plan? We kind of want to teach you guys what programming really is. So before I move on to our next point, the point I'm about to say is probably the most important thing you guys should take away in this whole course. Programming is only 15% coding and 85% problem solving. Anyone can go in and just memorize the code by just looking at the API documentation, just spit it out on a coding editor. But if you guys don't know how to properly approach a problem and learn how to solve it in a way a computer would think about solving a problem, you won't be able to actually apply the skill of programming. So in our course, we want to emphasize that programming is mainly about problem solving. We want to teach you guys how to code and simultaneously teach you guys how to approach a problem and solve it in a systematic and easy way. And we also want to teach you guys how to like debug code and fix any errors in your code as you move on. And along the course, we'll give you guys some resources that will help help you guys master Python as you go on in the course. And we also plan to give you guys as much value for your time as possible, because you guys are giving up 1 to 2 hours in your week every day to come join our course. And we want to make sure that you guys are getting the most for your time. So what are we going to cover in our first lesson? In this lesson, we're going to be talking about what Python is, why we're going to teach Python, and we're going to teach you guys how to navigate an integrated design environment called Ripple.it. We're going to help you guys create an account and get everything set up. And finally, we're going to teach you guys how to run sample code on that. So why are we teaching you guys Python? In programming, there's two different types of languages. There's an interpreting language and there's a compiling language. Interpreting languages are more related to English. They're very easy to learn, and just as you read the interpreting language, it's like very similar to English. But the problem is the computer doesn't speak English. It takes very long for the computer to compute that code and run the code. So it's very time consuming for the computer to run it. On the other hand, there's compiling code. Compiling code is probably like a language it's very closely related to the language that the computer speaks. And because of that, it doesn't have to take time in converting it to the computer language, and it runs really fast. But the problem is compiling languages are very hard to learn. They're very complicated, and they include many complex concepts. So usually no one really starts off their programming journey by learning a compiling language. They usually learn a interpreting language like Python. And Python is probably one of the most upcoming languages right now, and especially in the future, if you're interested in like a data science or machine learning pathway, it's very useful to learn Python. So that's the reason why we're teaching Python as our intro to programming type of course. And it's very useful, and it'll help you guys cultivate a problem solving and critical thinking mindset. So what is Python? Python is a high-level programming language which can be used for many different applications. And it can be used for creating apps, creating games, data science, machine learning, and many more applications. And right now, Python is one of the most upcoming languages, which is very popular right now. And right now, there's many job opportunities for Python, and is probably going to continue to grow as we move on in time. And Python is a very simplified language. As you guys know, it's interpreting language, which allows for the user to make mistakes without really destroying the entire code. And it's very easy for other people to read and understand the code properly. And if you guys didn't know, usually what companies do is when it comes to, for example, machine learning, they usually prototype their code in Python because it's just very easy to write, very easy for other people to understand. And once they get that to work, since it takes really long to run, they convert that the Python, which is an interpreting language, into a compiling language like C++. And that way, after they're done prototyping it, they can publish it and get it ready for production in C++. And that's usually how companies combine Python with another compiling language. And that's why it's perfect for beginners and professionals as well. So now, do you guys have any questions about what we've talked about so far before we move on to getting Ripple.it ready? If you have any questions, just put it in the Zoom chat below, or you can add it to you can just type in the link above here. Okay, so Ripple.it is an integrated design environment. Wait 1 minute. Oh, what's the goal for the season? So our goal is to teach you guys what programming is, how to properly solve programming problems in a systematic and easy way, and kind of introduce you guys to the different type of languages. Because if you were to properly learn one language, it's very easy to pick up many other languages. And what we plan on doing is properly teaching the concepts, making you guys apply it with the practice and Jupyter notebooks, which we'll be coming back to later in this lesson. And so that you can properly understand how to write the code and apply the code in the lesson. Okay, so now let's move on to Ripple.it. So Ripple.it is an integrated design environment. And it's like a web-based coding editor in which Python's pre-installed, and it has many different other languages you can code in. And um, I feel like this integrated design environment is perfect for beginners, so you don't have to install and go through a long process of installing and getting it ready. And at the same time, you can access it anywhere as long as you have a internet connection. So I want everyone to go ahead and go onto their browser and type repl.it. That's the website name, like this. And I want everyone to go ahead and sign up and create an account. That's the place where you guys will be doing most of your coding. Okay. Um, Now, if everyone got that ready, I want everyone to go ahead and create a new REPL. Creating a new REPL is like creating a new project. Um, we'll go into how to create a Python project in just a second. Just go ahead and just click that button for now.
Just type in the chat when you're done once you have a reputable IT account, please let us know in the chat so we know to when to continue. Thanks. Yeah, you need to sign up. Go to REPL IT. I sent the link to the website in the Zoom chat. Yes, Adam, we're supposed to, yeah, sign up for an account. It shouldn't take that long. You should probably sign up with Google or whatever works. Got one done? Just send it done in the chat once you're ready. We have 4 dones. If anyone needs help, just let us know. I think everyone's got it. We can continue now.
So yeah, now we're just gonna move on to the next step. Now I want everyone to go ahead and create a new REPL. And click the drop down for the language. And if you click the drop down, you'll be able to see many different languages like Python, Node.js, C, and many other languages. And right, since this course is mainly based on Python, can everyone create a Python? Can everyone click the Python language? And after that, I want everyone to name your REPL. Just name whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. And finally, I want everyone to make sure every time you create a REPL related to this course or related to the homework, I want everyone to make it public. That way, you can always share us your code, and we can get feedback when you can get feedback once it's complete. And yeah, it should look something like this. Okay, now let's move on to how the integrated design environment looks. So right here on the very left-hand side is where all your Python files go in that project. So you can see, for example, right here, it says main.py. That's the Python file that you're running right now. Then right beside it is where you write your code. This is the place where you type out your code and prototype everything. Finally, if you want to see the results of your code, you click the run button right here, and then you'll see your results show up right here. And if you ever wanted to share your code to us to always review or something like that, just click the share button right here. And that way, you'll get a link which will can be sent to us, and we can always review your code and make sure it's properly coded and in like a more professional way as well. So, what is your homework for this lesson? You guys will always have a week to complete all the homework, and the homework should be less than an hour every week. It shouldn't really take that long. And the way we're teaching this course is going to be a little bit different. What we're planning on doing is we're going to go over major concepts and programming concepts in Python and other languages in the live streams we do every week. Then on your own time, we've created a Jupyter notebook, which Jupyter notebook is like a notebook that contains code and text. Think of it like a Word file with coding blocks in it in between. And you're able to run those specific blocks and see how everything works. You can write your own code as well and manipulate the numbers. That's the way you're going to learn how to actually code. We'll definitely be doing coding in class on the live stream, but I feel like the best way to learn is to actually apply it yourself and actually learn from it. And this Jupyter notebook will walk you through slowly on how to use a Jupyter notebook and the difference between markdown cells, code cells, and how to run cells as well. And this and for our upcoming lessons, like we're about to do lesson 2 in another 10 minutes. It's a very easy way to actually say you missed a lesson. You can always go here and walk through. You can walk through the Jupyter notebook slowly, step by step, and actually learn everything properly. Finally, we want everyone to join the Discord server. The Discord server, okay, Discord is like it's a free application which can be used to like text with people. And you don't even need to download it or anything. You can use a web-based application as well. And this is the way we're going to be communicating with you guys. GroupMe is also another way, but I feel like Discord is an easier way to communicate with the students and send links from back and forth, send text and stuff like that. And that's what we're going to be using for this course. Everyone can go create a free account on their own time, and we'll send a link on the GroupMe on how to join our Discord server. But yeah. And finally, if you have the time, this is not necessary. Just run the examples in REPL.it. That way you'll get a feel for how REPL.it works and how everything looks like. You can change the themes and do whatever you want to like personalize it for yourself. Yeah, so this is the end of lesson 1. We have one more lesson for today in which we'll be going over variables and data types. If you have any other questions now, go ahead and type it in the chat and we'll answer those immediately.
Not everyone put their phone number into the Google form. So if you're not in the group me, message me and I can get you the Discord link. Um, yeah.
Okay, it seems like no one has any questions now. So you don't have to do this Google form here. We have another one at the end of lesson 2. It's probably best you do it there. And really, the Google form's just there so that we can learn from our experiences and make sure the course is the best it can possibly be. And this is only season 1 of our Python course. We're probably going to do another one next year for our new upcoming students. We want to make sure that we're doing this properly, we're teaching in the proper way, and we want to make sure everyone's getting personalized help and understanding the concepts. So before so this is the end of lesson 1. We are going to go ahead and start lesson 2 in another 5 minutes, so everyone can go take a break and do whatever they need to. And yeah. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with lesson 2. So some people were asking questions about the curriculum and how our course is going to be looking like right now. One of our instructors, Edgar, will post it in the chat right now, and we'll be sending an email out with like a Word document with our whole curriculum outline. And some people were asking questions about what level they would be at the end of this course, how long the course was every week, and how many days, how many classes we'll be having. Overall, at the end of this course, you'll be an intermediate level. You'll have experience with basic Python and how to use Python, and how to write classes, and many different things. But you won't have experience using different libraries in Python. There's different libraries like NumPy, Pandas, and much more, which is used mainly for data science, or some for app development, and many more. We'll maybe come up with a future course going over data science specifically, maybe even machine learning and stuff like that. But for now, you guys will be just understanding Python properly, so that if you understand Python properly, it'll be easy to learn the libraries afterward. The second thing you guys, some people were asking was how many hours this was every week. Every week we will be having a course, a live session, which is about 1 hour to 1 hour 15 minutes. We're just estimating right now. It should be taking about that much time. Finally, we're gonna have. Finally, some people are asking about how many classes we'll be having. We'll be having 6 classes, one every weekend on Saturday, 2 to 3 o'clock, and yeah, you guys should be done around the end of summer. So now let's get into the content. So in this lesson, we'll be mainly going over variables and simple data types. We'll be getting into actual coding now. So we'll be going over what variables are and different data types like strings and numbers. And finally, we're going to teach you guys something important about why you need to write comments in your code. Okay. So what is a variable? A variable is like a word that holds a value. You could think about a variable like a box that can hold an object in it. For example, say you have a variable called book, right? The variable has a box, an empty box, and you store a Harry Potter book in it. So the variable is storing or holding the value Harry Potter. Okay? So all it's really doing is storing any value. A variable is just a word that stores a value. That's all it is. So let's actually convert our example into code. So what we're going to do here is I have a coding editor right here open for you guys. And I'm going to go ahead and actually write the code out for you guys. So let's go ahead and let's create a variable called book. So how you create a variable is very simple. You have a word, and you just have to make the equal sign, and you just have to store whatever you want inside after the equal sign. So ignore the quotation marks right now. We'll be getting into what quotation marks actually mean later on in this lesson. But for now, let's just store Harry Potter inside of it. So now, to make the computer print out the value that is stored inside of the variable book, we're going to use a print statement. A print statement, all it does is just prints out whatever's inside the parentheses. In this case, it's referencing the variable book, and inside of the variable book, it's storing Harry Potter. So it should print out the value Harry Potter if we were to run this. And as you guys can see, it shows Harry Potter. And to prove, and that's and in this example, as you can see, the variable book, all it is acting as a placeholder for this value. So whenever you call the variable book after you store a value inside of it, all it is it's acting like a placeholder, which will be called anytime it's called in the program. Now let's go over the different data types. So the data types we'll be going over today are strings and numbers. A string, which we'll be getting into in just a second, is just any type of characters or numbers inside of parentheses, or not parentheses, but quotation marks, as you guys have seen over here. And the two number data types we'll be going over are integers and floats. Integers are just whole numbers, and floats are just a number with a decimal point. So let's learn more in depth about what strings are. So a string is just a series of characters. It's anything including characters, numbers, and symbols inside of quotation marks. And anything inside quotation marks is considered a string in Python. As you guys can see right here, this is considered a string. And to prove to you guys that this variable book is actually a string, we're going to use something called this is going to be a function inside of Python called type. Type is mainly used for data science purposes, but in this case, we're going to be using it to determine what data type the variable book is. So if we were to type book inside of the parentheses, it's showing us that the value is a string. This data type is a string. And in Python, a string, you can use two different types of quotation marks. You can use single quotes or double quotes. It really doesn't matter. And I can prove to you guys that either way, it's going to be a string. So if we change this to single quotes and we run that, and this, it's still showing that it's actually a string. So now let's expand on a previous program. All we've done so far is just store the variable book. We printed out with a value of book. So now, let's create a program in which the user can input their least favorite book and their most favorite book, and the computer will print out in a sentence, your least favorite book is blank and your most favorite book is blank. So how do we do this? You can use something called input functions. Input function, all it is a way so that a user could input their own value for a variable. So this is how it's done. So let's create a variable for the least favorite book. So let's go ahead and create a variable. And one tip I want to give you guys is whenever you create a variable, make sure it's very descriptive so that it doesn't get confused easily in your program. So, and how to create input function is very simple. It's as simple as writing input right here with parentheses. And now you just have to include a print statement inside of the input, because the print statement is going to actually display the question to the audience. So you have to include a print statement inside the parentheses like this, and it should in this way you can type in whatever you want. You can write the question inside the print statement saying, what is your least favorite book? So all this is doing is you're using an input function to print out the question, what is your least favorite book? Now, if the audience were to type in their least favorite book, that the value that the audience typed in will be stored as a string inside of the variable least favorite book. And let's do this for the same. Let's do the same thing for the most favorite book. So let's do one for favorite book. All we have to do is the same thing, but just type in the question, favorite book. Now we have to actually print this out in a statement. So how do we reference variables inside of a print statement? It's very simple. All we have to do is there's something called an f string. An F string is in the F in the F string. All it is F is for format because Python formats the string by replacing the name of any variable inside of braces with its value. So how to write an F string? You just type the F here, and you write your parentheses for your sentence here. So now we're going to print out the sentence. Your favorite book is. So now we want to reference our variable. So we put the braces and we just type in favorite book here. And we do the same thing for least favorite book. And your least favorite book is. So now it should be, now if you were to run the program, it would ask you to type in your least favorite book. And with the question right here saying, what is your least favorite book? So if we were to answer this, I could say for my least favorite book, which is maybe Hunger Games, which is not true. And for your favorite book, I could say Harry Potter. And it'll print out in a statement, your favorite book is Harry Potter and your least favorite book is Hunger Games. So that's how input functions work. Does anyone have a question about input functions before we move on to string methods? Okay, so now we're going to move on to string methods. String methods aren't really that important right now. We reference them in the Jupyter notebook for this lesson, in which you guys will actually learn how to apply them. But I will quickly just type it in right here in our so really a string method is just a way to manipulate a string. And using this method, say we have a name called John Doe. And we can use, say you want to make all the letters uppercase. We can use a string method called upper, in which we'll make all the letters into uppercase, like this. And it's the same thing for lowercase. If you add here, it will make all of the letters into lowercase, like this, like that. And then finally, there's one for title case, in which you want the first letter in each word to be capital. And it's very simple to do. You just have to do name.title. And really how you reference a method is you just type your string inside of a variable. You store your string in a variable, and then you just call it by doing your variable dot the method you want to do. There's many more methods in when it comes to strings, but we'll be going over those later on in the course. And they're not really that important. It's very easy to reference when you just look at a documentation. So before we move on to integers, does anyone have any other questions about strings? Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask questions since it's your first time of learning programming. It may be a little bit complex to learn for the first time. Okay, moving on. So now we're going to go over the data types for numbers. So numbers are used very often in programming to keep score in games, represent data in visualization, and store information in web applications, and much more. So for numbers, there are many different types of integers, floats, complex numbers, binary numbers, octal numbers, and hexadecimal numbers. But really, the most important ones you guys really need to know is, especially from my own experience, is the integer and float numbers. So we're going to go over integers. One person asked, "Could you leave more time for us to practice?" Yeah. I can stop every once in a while while I'm typing this out for you guys to actually type it out yourself. But all of this will be inside of the Jupyter notebook for you guys to practice at any time. So when everyone's ready to go, I'll give you guys all a minute to before we move on to numbers.
Hey, Bruin, you're muted.
Oh, I'm muted?
Yeah,
Oh,
go back a little bit. They didn't hear
yeah,
it.
sorry. Yeah, sorry. Okay. So let's go back to what I was saying. So integers are just whole numbers. They're any number like 1, 2, 78, uh, 96, and whatever. So that means there's no decimal point. Integers are, if you do any mathematical operation with integers, like say if you do an integer plus an integer, integer minus integer, integer multiplied integer, it will give you a integer value only. Like if you do a whole number plus a whole number, it'll give you a whole number, just like that. But in Python, if you were ever to do a integer divided by an integer, it will give you a different value. It will give you a float value actually. And there's a reason for that, and it's not really that big of a deal, and there's an easy way to go around that. But you guys can always, in our Jupyter notebook for lesson 2, we'll be going over why that actually happens and how to combat that. So let's actually, let's restart, and let's go ahead and define 2 different variables, and let's do mathematical operations with integers. So let's create a variable called num1, and let's create a variable called num2, and let's add these 2 together. And if you want to, we can put any value in here for integer. We can do 34 plus 45, like that. So, and if you were to run this, you will get an integer value only. If you were to subtract these values, oh, sorry. If we were to subtract these values, you would get an integer only. If we were to multiply this, you would get an integer value only. But if we were to do any division, like I said, we will get a float value instead, like that. And that's not really that big of a concern. Even if we were to do 4 divided by 2, we would still get a float value as our answer 2.0. And it's not that big of a concern. There's easy ways to go around it, but we'll be going over that later on. And finally, if you ever wanted to convert a string or a float into an integer, there's a Python function called int. And all you have to do is, so let's go back to our, to demonstrate this, let's actually do it. So say we have a variable called, let's create a string with a number inside of it. So let's create string. Let's create a variable called string number, and inside of it we'll hold a number inside of a string. And if you want to convert that to an integer value, all you have to do is first we have to print it so we actually can view it. And inside of it, all we have to do is inside the parentheses, all we have to do is print out a string number with the function called int. And all it does is convert a string or a float to a integer. And if we were to run that, we get our answer as 2. And to actually prove to you guys that this is actually an integer, all we have to do is use the Python type function and do string number. And there we go. Wait. 1 second. I messed up here. That's right. You can't do it inside of a print statement. You have to do it outside. So let's convert it. So let's redefine the variable string number. And so the problem I made was that you cannot use the int function inside of a print statement. That's just how Python works. But so all we have to do is redefine the variable and just put string number inside of it. And if we were to print this value, it now is showing us that this value is actually an integer value. And that's pretty much all we have for integers. Does anyone have any questions for that? And I'll give everyone a second to catch up. Okay, now we're going to move on to floats. So floats is the same thing as an integer, but it has a decimal point afterward. And pretty much, if you were to do any mathematical operation with a float, if you did a float plus a float, float minus float, float times float, or float divided by float, you'll always get a float as your answer. And we can easily prove this by using our previous code over here and just changing to a float. So let's create two variables, and all we have to do is, let me just copy and paste this. So let's create two variables, one for num1 and one for num2. And if we were to do any mathematical operation, so let's multiply these together, you'll get a float value. If you do addition, we'll get a float value. No matter what, it will always give you a float value. But the thing is, if you were to ever do a mathematical operation in which you did an integer divided by a float, integer plus a float, integer minus float, or anything like that, it will only yield a float value. So we can easily demonstrate this as well. So all we have to do is redefine two variables, and we make one of them an integer, one of them a float. And we do any mathematical operation, we'll get a float as our answer. And yeah, that's just how mathematical operations in Python work. And if you ever want to convert a integer or a string to a float, it's very simple. All you have to do is you have to use a function called float, very similar to the function int. And it's very simple. All you have to do is define a number called number1, and let's use the function called float. And if we put any number inside of it, like if we put an integer number inside of it, which is 7 right here, it will convert that to a float value for us, like you guys see right here. So now let's move on to why we need comments. So in programming specifically, comments are very important. So if you were ever to work with a group of people on a program, or if you're just work on it yourself, so let's take this for example. Say you're coding one day and you're writing a program for an app, and then you leave after that and you don't code for the next 5 days. If you went back to the code, you'd be kind of confused just looking at it with lines of code without any indication of what each part does. If you wrote comments in your code, it would be very easy for you to go back in your code and just understand what everything is. And really, comments are just English language in a coding text editor. That's all it is. So it's very useful when you're working with other programmers or you're working just by yourself. So it's very easy for you to navigate your code and explain your code to other people. And in a very professional setting as well, companies will require you to write comments in your code. So before we move on, let's do one last thing. Let's create a calculator for addition and subtract. Let's do a calculator for addition really quickly. So how do we do that? We want the user to input their own number. So let's have a user to input two numbers, and it would add those two numbers together. It's very simple to do. All we have to do is So we would have two variables in which we use the input function, and we ask the user to input their own number. So if we were to run this, let's say that let's make our first number 3. Let's make our second number 2. And if we were to, so if you want to figure out, the problem with this is that when you use the input function with the print statement inside of it, the variable will store the number as a string value. I'll show you guys right here. If you use Python type function, it's going to be stored as a string instead of an integer. So how do we fix this? It's very simple. All we have to do is redefine the variable and convert it using the int function. You can use float or int, it doesn't really matter. So I'll just use int for now, and we will convert num1, which is a string, into a integer, and we'll convert num2, which is a string, into an integer as well. So now it's going to convert the string into an integer so we can do mathematical operations. Finally, if you want to print the addition part of it, if you want to add these two numbers together, you can just do num1 plus num2, and it'll give you your answer. So let's demonstrate this. Let's do 2 as our first number, 3 as our second number, and we get 5 as our answer. So that's how it works. So that's all we really have for today. For lesson 2, we have 2 pieces of homework for you guys to do. Our first homework is for you guys to go through the Jupyter notebook for this for lesson 2, and it'll look like this when you guys see it. It'll be going over what variables are, what are we when in class. It'll go step by step, starting off with print statement and going over how everything works. Mainly what we did in class is mainly conceptually based. It will be going over how, like, we're just going over the different concepts of programming and how to write them. But in this, you'll actually explore how to write it yourself and how to like manipulate different variables and different methods for strings and numbers and stuff like that. And it might look quite long, but it shouldn't really take you more than 20 minutes to complete, because mainly most of this is just text. And if you definitely go through this and you do the assignment, which we're about to talk about, I guarantee you'll be actually properly understanding what variables and data types are, and you'll be able to complete the next homework assignment we're about to say. The second homework assignment, what I want you guys to do is create 2 different programs. I want one program in which the user can input a Celsius value and convert that to a Fahrenheit value. And I want a second program in which the user can input a Fahrenheit value and convert to a Celsius value. We have taught you guys everything you guys need to know to complete this assignment. And if you guys ever want to know the formula on how it's converted, you can search it up on the internet, or we have the value right here. Once this assignment is completed, you can just send it to us through our Discord server or GroupMe. We'll check it over and we'll make sure that you properly wrote it, especially with comments. And that's pretty much all the homework you guys have for this week. That's all we have for today. I recommend that everyone joins the Discord group, and so that we can keep in contact with you guys and notify you guys of any upcoming things. And the Discord group will kind of serve as a community for you guys, in which we will make sure you guys are accountable for completing your homework. At the same time, you guys can ask help between your own peers, so you guys can learn from each other. And if you're learning from each other, you'll definitely reinforce the concepts in your own head. And finally, please complete the Google form for us as well. We just want to see how we can improve this class. And yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, just type in the chat and we'll answer that immediately.
We have one question in the chat, Varun. The relationship between Python and Jupyter.
Okay, so Jupyter Notebook, all it is that it's a it's an integrated design environment for Python, or this it has some for C++ and other languages, but what we're using specifically is for Python. And it's a very interactive way of using Python. If you go through our lesson 1, Jupyter Notebook, we'll be going over what Jupyter Notebook is and why it's important to use. But I'll just give you a brief overview of why, what Jupyter Notebook is and how it relates to Python. So pretty much, as you guys see here, each of these blocks is called a coding cell, in which you can run code inside of that cell. And that way you can get, make sure that, really, Jupyter Notebooks are mainly used for data science and machine learning because it allows for data visualization for Python. I can probably pull up an old program right here, which I can show you guys how you can visualize data with Python. But really, Jupyter Notebook is just an interactive way of using Python, and it's very useful when it comes to teaching people how Python coding languages, and it's also useful for data science and machine learning. If I can pull up. I'll pull up lesson 1's Jupyter Notebook, in which I show you guys how data visualization works.
The Jupyter Notebooks will be on Google Drive. I'll send that in the email. And let's see. Yeah. Also, if you have any questions, just join the Discord, message me or Varun or Rick, and we can help you answer the homework or whatever you need, really.
So right here, I'm showing you guys how Jupyter Notebook can be used for data science and machine learning. Right here, I imported a CSV file in which data is compiled inside the CSV file. So I'm able to like print out the CSV file and analyze it. I can manipulate it and do many things like that. And the thing is, with Jupyter Notebook, I can write each thing in with one line, and I can in real time see how the changes are being made, and that's where it's mainly useful for. And right here, as you guys can see, I was able to plot the data from the plot the data from the data that was given to me, and that's really mainly where Jupyter Notebook and Python work together. It can also be used for machine learning and many other applications like that. But usually data science and machine learning go hand in hand with that. But yeah. Okay, that's all we have for this class. Just make sure you fill out the Google form at the end of this and join the Discord server as well, in which you guys can ask us questions. And if you need help getting on the Discord server, don't worry, we can help you with that. And if anyone has any last second questions, you can go ahead and ask it. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and end the live stream for today.
Yeah, I'll send the survey in the email.
Okay, I'm just going to end it here now. Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye bye.